Hello friends. This is the Ani Fanfics. How are you all? So we are back with 4th episode on what if Naruto had 3 bloodline, magnet, explosion, plasma, and also had light release. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin. Sakura stared at the poor unfortunate victim of her crush's deception. The snow rabbit dangling from her sensei's hand was now a casualty of this mission. Normally, Sakura would have lamented the meaningless demise of the poor animal, and the Uchiha fangirl she pretended to be in the academy would have admonished Naruto for killing such a cute and defenseless creature. That Sakura would have sickened her, not only for being a complete bitch to Naruto, but for failing to notice the abnormal state of the rabbit's fur. Now, she acknowledged the warning her crush brought to their attention and made a note to thank him, properly, when they were alone. As long as he's okay, after this fight, she added to herself, then prayed, please let him be okay, Kami-sama, this is an S-rank ninja we're fighting. Behind the rosette, several water needles began to form out of the suddenly dense atmosphere. Sakura-chan, look out, Hinata's scream brought Sakura out of her thoughts, as the Hyuga suddenly whirled between her teammate and the projectiles of water. Hinata's palms were wreathed in chakra as she danced between them and Sakura, swatting them out from the air, scattering them all. 8 trigrams. Air shield, she stated, and Hinata's arms began moving extremely fast, causing the chakra to become visible, until what appeared to be a dome of solid air, but really was just her hands and arms, moving so fast they looked like a solid shield, surrounded the Hyuga heiress, effectively destroying the Senbon needles. As effective as Hinata's sudden defense of Sakura was, one needle manages to slip past the Hyuga princess and puncture Sakura's right arm. The rosette hisses in pain when the needle sticks into her, she looks at it, but does not have time to examine the wound. She decides to ignore it for the moment, except to remove and throw it away, but it did shock her out of her musings. Sakura looks around, noticing that water needles were pelting them from everywhere. She begins to loosen her joints, swaying as if from an unfelt breeze, evading other needles, as she made her body move using the taijutsu style her roommate taught her. Sakura was taken completely by surprise when a figure wearing a hunter ninja mask rushed low into Sakura's line of sight. Sakura barely had time to gather any details on the person before Sakura's feet were swept out from under her. Before she could fall however, Hinata was there holding Sakura by the middle, adding a fulcrum, allowing the Shema-wearing Kunoichi to flip out of the potential fall. As soon as Sakura was clear, the Hyuga infused her fist with lightning, launching a straight punch at the face of the anonymous hunter nin. Just before impact, their adversary bent his head out of the way, before somersaulting away from the point of impact. Sakura stood back from the brawl between her teammate and the hunter nin, she had time to analyze their opponent. He was wearing a grey, pinstriped shirt and hakama, commonly found in Kurigakure, over which was a seafoam green haori, with white trim, and a brown fringed sash, wrapped twice around his waist. The hunter nin also wore light brown platoon sandals, with straps in the same color as the kimono, and nail polish on fingernails and toes, matching the blue-green color. He wore a hunter nin mask, which was white, with thin curved eye holes, and a red wavy design in place of the mouth, as well as a Kurigakure symbol etched in the top. Sakura's observation took a fraction of a second, with practiced ease, she pulls her babies from their resting place on her thigh. Sakura's hanbo, a gift given by the team to acknowledge the truce over Naruto's heart until such time that Kurenai-sensei could be given an equal chance to snag him, were just right for this occasion, and there was more to them than met the eye. Sakura began to flow through the water senbon, like a dragon on the high winds, with Hinata keeping this hunter nin's attention occupied. The pink-haired Kunoichi reached his side and lashed out with her hanbo. Her attack struck the elite ninja in the left flank, but instead of striking flesh, she felt the unmistakable sound of her billy clubs, hitting a body of water. The water clone evaporated like condensation on a window immediately upon impact, leaving the Kunoichi looking around in surprise. They immediately went back to back, staring at the surrounding landscape. They would not be taken from behind if they could help it. Out of the mists, a form seemed to condense from the air. The hunter nin seemed to be studying them intently before she spoke to them with a voice as soft and gentle as Hinata's own. Please, stand down, Kunoichi-sans, the Kunoichi hunter nin asked in a pleading voice. I have no wish to harm you, I simply want the S-rank ninja, Juzo Biwa. There is no need for you to get further involved and needlessly injured. Sakura's expression became contemplative. Surely, Ryashi-san, you wouldn't begrudge some help in taking on an S-rank ninja, she asked in bewilderment. The hunter ninja just sighed before dropping her head with a shameful shake. I have been hunting Biwa-san for some time now and was preparing a way to take him down when you and your team appeared out of nowhere. It is my duty to see this through, she added determinedly. You shouldn't allow your pride and arrogance to dictate how you do your work, Ryashi-san, Hinata rebuked. It has killed more warriors than any weapon ever could. Her voice, while still soft, carried steel within it. Their opponent started at the reprimand. "I am sorry, I did not mean to belittle your skills, but this is my job," she continued, "it is my purpose." The Hyuga narrowed her eyes, and with an uncharacteristic growl, "So your purpose is to deceive us, Kinoichi-kun, to keep us focused on you, while your true self trapped us." Without warning, Hinata clapped her hands, sending out a massive wave of vibrational energy, rippling out into the air. The ripples hit resistance in the form of the water droplets in the mist, which caused a chain reaction that pushed the fog out and away from their immediate area. The air, suddenly clear of visual obstruction, revealed that they had been trapped within a dome-like structure. There were mirrors surrounding the Konoha Kunoichi on all sides, even as they looked above them, at the summit of the dome. Held within the reflective surface of the mirrors, the image of the Hunter Nin was being reflected back at them from every angle. "Please," came the voice of the Hunter Nin, "don't make me kill you," she pleaded. "I wonder, Kunoichi Mainu, bitch," Sakura spat, "are you trying to protect your bounty, or are you trying to protect Juzo Biwa team, bastard?" Sakura was looking into one of the reflections and watched the Kunoichi's eyes harden when she insulted Juzo. "Thank you, Anko-ni, the lessons you taught me about reading body language have come in handy," Sakura continued. "It won't matter, because he is as good as dead, right now, and no matter what happens here today, you will fail this mission." Sakura began twirling her hanbo, moving them up and down her body at blinding speeds. The hunter ninja's eyes became outraged, but she tried to conceal her true emotions, pretending that Sakura had not completely insulted her partner. She tried to keep a tight rein on her temper, but despite masking her face, the Rosette Kunoichi could read her like an open book. The eyes are the windows to the soul, and her soul was bare to the world. Yuzo Biwa was precious to this girl, he meant more to her than her own life. Without warning, senbon needles began raining down on the Kunoichi from Konoha on all sides, pouring out of the mirrors like a torrential downpour. This was what Sakura wanted, to make her opponent expend more chakra than she normally would if she was in a more reasonable frame of mind. Sakura channeled her own chakra into the hanbo, causing both of them to transform into a pair of nunchaku. She stepped away from her teammate to avoid hitting her with her weapons and began whirling them through the air, around her body, knocking the needles away from her. The only miscalculation Sakura made was the composition of the needles, because instead of needles made of water, they were made of pure metal. While Sakura was distracting the Ryashi Nin, Hinata began to increase the vibrational energy in the air, causing the ambient temperature within the dome to increase incrementally. At the same time, Hinata infused fire chakra into her defense, 8 trigrams. "Flare shield," she muttered. "Sakura-chan, we need to try to get one of us outside the dome, that way one of us may begin destroying her mirrors," Hinata yelled. "I'm on it, princess," Sakura yelled back as she made a dash directly for one of the openings between the mirrors. She brought the ends of her hanbo together, which caused them to become a single weapon, the 3-section staff. Sakura spun her weapon over her head so fast it almost appeared to be an umbrella, protecting her from the rain of metal. Before Sakura could make it to the edge, the rain of needles abated as she saw a blur on the periphery of her vision, getting larger as it came near her. At the last minute before impact, Sakura swung her weapon towards the blur. The Ryashi Nin evaded at the last possible moment and re-entered her mirrors, and the rain of senbon was renewed. Over the alternative frequency comm device, the Kunoichi from Konoha coordinated their defense. Their goal here was not to win. Not yet, at least. For the moment they were just trying to buy time for the rest of their team to make it to Tezuna's home. That was what Yugao and Hade, along with a flash clone of Naruto, were doing, transporting their charge as a flock of geese, sealed into a storage scroll. As soon as Naruto told them they were safe at home, they would be able to fight with no holds barred. Until then they were just going to be doing their best to distract the hunter Kunoichi and her master. Sakura and Hinata took several convincing rushes at different points within the mirrored prison, all the while Hinata increased the vibes within the dome, causing the air within to become muggy and humid. Hinata was just taking another run at the walls when Sakura received another voice, one she cherishes above all others. "Sakura-chan, how are things going over there?" Naruto's voice asked, and though he masked it well, she could detect a mote of anxiety for her safety when he spoke. "We're about even in skill to this hunter Nin, Naruto-kun," Sakura answered. "She's activated some sort of mirrored ice prison that allows her to move between them very quickly. It's only thanks to Hinata-chan that I don't have more wounds than I do already. While she is a strong, independent woman and does not need her crush's affection to make her feel special, Sakura of Konoha would be lying if the gasp of concern for her well-being did not fill her heart with warmth. It's nothing major, Naruto-kun," she hurriedly assured him, but could not keep her love for him out of her voice as she added, "You've given me worse than this when we spar, and you never hold back against any of us." "Don't deny it," Sakura admonished him. "Well, anyway, I've just gotten confirmation. Tezuna has made it safely home," he explained the reason for his call. She smiled at his obvious attempt to change the subject. "So, you two can do whatever you need to get back to me." "Roger that, Naruto-kun," Sakura stated in a thankful tone of voice. "See you soon." Keying her calm frequency to speak to Hinata, Sakura relayed the same information Naruto had to her. "Hinata-chan, it's time to get serious," she relayed to her teammate. "Hi, Sakura-chan," Hinata replied, then whispering, "Byakugan," her clan Dojutsu blazed forth, which allowed her to locate the real form of their adversary. Then relaying that information to Sakura, "She's located in the mirror on the second story of the mirrors, at 284 degrees, Sakura-kun, take her down." "Roger, Hinata-kun," Sakura's voice came over the comms, "here goes nothing." Shiroyuki had been observing the battle from her vantage point and she had to admit these kunoichi were well trained. Because except for that one stray senbon going into the Shimaware, she had inflicted no wounds on these women. That was something she had not seen happen outside of her training with Juzo-sama. Thinking of her master, she thought back to her time with her family when she had unlocked her chakra and discovered her power over ice. Her mother, who had always been so gentle and kind to Shiroyuki, raised her hand and struck her daughter. Her mother immediately felt tears well up within her eyes and immediately fell to her knees, hugging her daughter and apologizing profusely for striking Shiroyuki. Her mother rebuked her for using her powers and warned her daughter to never show them to anybody. But both of them did not know it was already too late. Someone had watched the whole scene play out and it was Shiroyuki's own father. He gathered the villagers and stormed into their home. He murdered Shiroyuki's mother, his wife, right in front of Shiroyuki. He would have succeeded in killing his own child, but Shiroyuki's self-preservation instincts kicked in and she manifested her Kekkei Genkai, Kumritan, or ice release, killing everybody in her house, including her father. After that, Shiroyuki lived on the streets, scrounging food and nourishment from garbage, contending with the feral animals wanting to fight over the best hunting grounds. It was during this time that Juzo-sama found her, sitting on the side of the road, he said. She had the same look in her eyes that he did, the look of someone with nothing left to lose. He took her in and forged her into a tool, a weapon meant to serve him and fight for him. Shiroyuki sees her master as her owner, he is precious to her, she would gladly have given herself to him, but he does not like women in that capacity. Still, she is his for the asking, if for no reason than to propagate his line, he does not even have to be in love with me, and I will eagerly give him heirs. Suddenly, Shiroyuki felt a presence, one of the kunoichi protecting Tazuna-sen was behind her. How did that happen, she wondered, but it was too late for her to dodge or even use substitution. She felt the narrow, blunt end of an energy sword punch through the back of her mirror and jab her in the back. Shiroyuki fell toward the ground, but at the last moment flipped into a taijutsu stance. Then before her eyes the Shema-wearing kunoichi leapt high into the air, shouting, "Storm clone technique. Bouncing Betty." Flechette style, and in an instant, she began shooting out projectiles of condensed light. The flechettes, as the kunoichi called them, struck Shiroyuki's mirrors, and wherever they struck, they left holes burned clean through her jutsu. In no time at all, her mirrors collapsed and even began to evaporate right in front of the fake hunter Nin. As the last of the ice mirrors dissolved, another kunoichi wearing the same thing as her obvious clone, except that the Shema was down around her shoulders, came walking through the debris of Shiroyuki's mirrors from the exterior of the dome. "It seems I was the one entrapped this time," the Kumritan user observed with a wry smile. The kunoichi's pink hair was cut short and into a bob-style do. She appeared directly in front of Shiroyuki. In her hands were two blades of light, one of which hummed slowly, like the beating of a heart while it rested. The other was humming, very much like that self-same heart, but beating in passion, like it was about to reach a climax, only needing a little more stimulation before it crescendoed. Shiroyuki got the distinct impression that she had been struck by the slow humming blade. She did not know how she reached that conclusion, but if this girl had used a passionate blade, Shiroyuki would have been dead, of that, she had no doubt. Shiroyuki fell to her knees and begged tearfully, "Please, kill me, a tool that cannot fulfill its function, is of no use and needs to be discarded." The ice user fell forward, placing her forehead on the ground, and awaited her fate. If she had kept her face up, she would have noticed the look of repugnance latching itself to Sakura's eyes, but an eyebrow quirked up over Hinata's face. "As you wish, Kunoichi-san," Sakura said, "but I refuse to murder someone with their face in the dirt. You will look at me as I take your life." Shiroyuki arose to seize a. Just as the rosette reached Shiroyuki, Sakura's clone used the rest of its chakra and dispelled. Sakura made her thrust with the intention of making her first kill. The blade came within a hair's breadth of killing the downed kunoichi, and Shiroyuki further shamed herself, apart from failing her master, by flinching back from the perceived attack, with her eyes closed, in fear. "You're too pretty to allow fear to creep across your face, Kunoichi-san," the rosette admonished her. "My name is Sakura no Konoha, and you're coming with us." Shiroyuki raised a hand and cupped her own face. "When did my mask fall off?" she wondered, then looking around, she spotted it lying a few yards away from her. She looked in that direction and noticed the air was free of the mist associated with Kurigakure no Jutsu. Shiroyuki whipped her head around and saw, standing atop the water, her master, with the other kunoichi and the shinobi, teammates to the two kunoichi that had defeated her, standing with their backs to the kunoichi and her. There were some clones of the shinobi present. One of them had grabbed a hold of Juzo-sama's sword arm, preventing him from drawing his sword. Another was both being held up by his shirt by Biwa-sama's other arm and also holding onto the arm as well, as if to prevent her master from letting go of him, and a final third clone was clinging to Juzo's back. It was almost like it was sticking itself there by a force other than chakra. Juzo finally looked at Shiroyuki and with a smile full of acceptance and gratitude, and though she could not hear it, knew his final words were for her, "Thank you," then all went white and she knew no more. The Whirlpool clan. Naruto threw up his M-field to prevent the surplus energy of the explosion from destroying anything more than he wished to destroy. As it was, there was already a good-sized crater cut into the riverbank. It was already filling with water from the river's tributaries. In an hour or so, there would be a pond here. Those thoughts were on the periphery of his mind though, as he stared at the hunk of charcoal that moments before was a human body. The one thought that was reverberating in his mind the loudest is, I just killed someone who, despite coming from a different village, was a genin just like me at one point. He had family, friends, maybe a lover, maybe not, but he had dreams, ambitions, hopes and fears, and I've just taken all of that away. Am I truly the monster, the demon, the villagers say I am? What right did I have to take his life? He was about to go even deeper into his self-damnation when he felt strong, female arms wrap around him from behind. Stop it, Naruto-kun, she crooned, softly, but intensely, what you did just now was necessary, it was what needed to happen. Naruto was shocked, then concluded with, for the mission, sensei. No, not for the mission, Kurenai corrected, but for something far more important than any mission. What's that? Naruto asked in surprise. Your life, Naruto-kun, she answered intensely, killing Juzo Biwa-san was necessary to protect your life. Naruto turned to look at his team sensei, but isn't the mission. Kurenai scoffed, despite the propaganda forced into your head by the academy, the mission is not the most important thing in a ninja's life, not even the Hokage believes that, it is a ninja's duty to do everything possible to get back from a mission alive. Your life, the life of your precious ones, those that love you, all of them would be devastated if you didn't come back from your mission. But, what about his life, sensei? What makes my life more important than his? Why do I get to take his life? Naruto questioned. It's not, his life was just as important as yours, he was the same as you, and nobody has the right to take anybody's life, Kurenai told him, while still wrapping her arms around him. The reason you are alive, while Juzo Biwa-sen is dead, is because you made the choice between his life and yours. You were not ready to give up your life, neither was he, but your choices, the strategies you employed, the tactics you used, and in truth, not a little bit of luck or divine providence, were what allowed you to win and stay alive. Naruto's head drooped in thought at Kurenai's words, choices and consequences, right sensei? That's correct, Kurenai nodded, even if he could not see her, and just think, if you hadn't made the choices you did, or if they had been the wrong choices, I could have been dead now, too. Then, Juzo may have gone after Sakura and Hinata, then he could have gone after the bridge builder at his own home, and who knows what would come afterwards. Naruto's eyes widened as he finally understood the stakes being a ninja had in store for him and those he loved, and I'm going to add something else to what I'm saying, Kurenai broke in on his train of thought. I've seen ninja revel and cheer once they've gotten their first kill, they consider it a rite of passage to make their first kill, and many come to enjoy it and even look forward to it, and I find that way of thinking abominable. Therefore, I am extremely glad that you've shown so much remorse for killing someone who would have killed you if your fortunes were reversed. Kurenai looked back, having noticed Sakura and Hinata had joined them, she made eye contact with them to assure her fellow Kunoichi teammates she was only acting as Naruto-sensei at the moment. That being said, this is a consequence for your actions here today. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, she stood back, and as he turned to regard her, she smiled in warmth and gratitude, that was for saving my life. Naruto blushed at the kiss from his sensei, he turned to his other blossoms to see how they felt about him getting kisses by Kurenai, despite the truce. They merely hardened their eyes in false affront, then smiled forgivingly, both understood that Kurenai was not trying to break the truce. He had just done something that all of them were going to have to do sometime in the future, and Kurenai-sensei was shepherding him through it, helping him by putting his actions into perspective. They were not blind either, the only two things keeping Kurenai-sensei from openly flirting with Naruto was the law forbidding student and teacher fraternization, and the truce they agreed to when they got their dragon mail, came Sakura's thoughts, which if Naruto is promoted to Chunin, will take him off our team, the truce will be off, and he'd be fair game to Yuhi-sensei. Returning to the present, Sakura and Hinata returned Naruto's smile, then he looked around for their other enemy, Sakura-chan, Hinata-chan, what happened to your enemy, did you end up killing her too? "No, you're the only one of us to get blooded on this outing," Sakura quipped back. "She seems to be linked to Juzo Biwa-san, I don't know how, but she referred to herself as a tool when we were able to talk with her." Sakura turned to their sensei. She fainted from emotional shock when Biwa-san died. She's taking up residence in a storage scroll for now. She possesses the Bloodline limit, right nice release, and seems to prefer using Senbon over other types of weapons, she reported to her sensei and romantic rival. Her ice prison jutsu would have been a fairly effective trap for anyone not inside of it. Naruto had walked over to the corpse of Juzo Biwa and looked down at him. Despite the charred remains, the super ninja's head and face were largely intact, and the executioner's blade, still on his back, was completely unblemished. "Goodbye, Juzo Biwa-san, I am truly sorry for taking your life, but I wasn't ready to die yet. I've no goals for the future other than to find love, true love, and maybe restart the Uzumaki clan, one generation at a time," he added, then continued, "Well, I know we were from different villages, and Konoha could learn a lot from your body. I will honor your life the way a true ninja would wish to be honored." Thus, Naruto reached down and removed Kubikurum from the deadman's back, harness and all, and placed them in a storage scroll. Then, he drew Totsuka no Tsurugi from his back and with a stylish flourish and a low sweep, severed the missing nin's head from his corpse in one motion. It was so fast, the corpse's congealing blood did not even have time to adhere to the blade. The incidental follow-through motion would have flung the blade free of blood if there had been any. Naruto had drawn and made his cut, including the flourish, and returned his blade to the scabbard, all within a single second. Naruto picked up the head of Biwa-Juzo, S-ranked Nuke Nin, from Kurigakure no Sato, in Mizu no Kuni, killed in action by Uzumaki Naruto, genin of Team 7, Aka. Blood squatter Kitsueki Buntai from Konohagakure no Sato and placed it within another storage scroll of its own. As he completed his duties to the ninja he had slain, he felt 2 discharges of chakra on his left and right. The chakra reached the corpse which ignited, and almost immediately the only thing remaining of Juzo Biwa were ashes. He looked and saw all of his teammates standing side by side with solemn expressions on their faces. The 2 kunoichi that could use fire had their hands in the Tora hand seal, a clear sign that they had expelled the chakra he felt. Naruto smiled at them in gratitude. He was not very good with fire chakra yet. They all returned his smile with warmth. Then Kurenai got serious and ordered, "Okay, let's head to our destination. We've accomplished more than enough here today, and as tough and strong as kunoichi are, I, for one, need to take a bath." She finished her comment with a leering wink at Naruto. Undercurrents. Among the trees within the forest on the previously running stream, 2 sets of eyes had watched the entire fight from start to finish. Both were Raiashi Nin, and both were from Mizu no Kuni, however only one of them was from the village hidden in the mist, and the other was from the rebellion taking place against the incumbent Mizukage. The Mist Hunter ninja was astounded and disgusted at the current turn of events. The disgust came from witnessing the battle of blood freaks, and because one of the 7 swords of the mist was now in the hands of those tree-hugging, leaf ninja. Hunter Nin are among the few ninja that can cross borders into other countries at will. They enjoyed a form of diplomatic immunity among ninjas. They are free to take any bounty they are capable of taking, even pursuing them across national borders, and unless the nation is in open warfare against the hunter's nation, there is little legal recourse or restriction that may be imposed upon any Raiashi Nin. The reason for the so-called immunity is because hunters are instrumental in providing data on ninja to be placed within the Book of Shinobi, more commonly known as the Bingo Book. There are 2 restrictions that a hunter nin may never violate in order to get a bounty. 1. Never interfere in another ninja village's ninja during a mission, even if they end up usurping the hunter's bounty. Once the bounty is dead or in custody of said ninja, a hunter nin may not interfere. And 2. If the missing ninja seeks refuge in another ninja village, capital city, or any type of merchant ship, a hunter nin must stop pursuit immediately. Yet, despite the repugnance of the official hunter nin, there was a begrudging respect forming within him as well. He had just witnessed the demise of one of the most formidable ninja ever to come out of the village hidden in the mist. That in and of itself was a noteworthy feat. What made the occasion even more astonishing was because Juzo Biwa-san, Nuke Nin of the Mist, also known as the Nightmare who paints the battlefields, met his end at the hands of a genin. He was a bloodline freak, but he should still not have been a match for one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I must report this to the Mizukage, the hunter thought, then cursed in his thoughts. Shit, there's no way Kuritachi-sama will believe this in any message I send. I have to report this to him person. And the Mist Hunter Nin's head suddenly lolled to the side and a trickle of blood came out of his nose. His body suddenly went limp, listing to the side before falling to ground like a sack of rice. Behind, where the dead hunter had lain in wait, cleaning the kunai he had used to eliminate any chance of the preceding battle's outcome from reaching his enemy, lay another legend of the Bloody Mists. He was the sole survivor of his graduating class and a master of the silent killing technique. He was known by most through the nickname, Demon of the Mists, Zabuza Mamachi. He was acting as the Ryashi Nin for the revolutionary forces opposing the current Sandai Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. They were being led by the current head of the Terumi clan, Mei Terumi. While young, even at 17 years of age, she had proven herself time and time again, not just through strength, but as a capable leader and galvanizing figure, that she had earned her status as Jonin by the time she was 15, and later during the Bloody Mist Uprising. This was the reason why she had been elected leader of the rebel army. Her beauty, and the fact that she carried 2 Kekkei Genkai, were very much beside the point. Zabuza and the rest of her forces would go through hell and back for her, and she well knew it, which was what Zabuza was doing out here. While the rebel forces had been holding their own quite well against Yagura's ninja, it had not been without a few losses in personnel, and while the Mizukage had an entire economy to draw upon to replenish his forces, Mei did not have such a luxury. Zabuza was sent on a recruiting and resources mission. Basically he was to recruit ninja among the dregs of the missing nin, not for their prowess, of course, more to act as jutsu fodder. The more Yagura had to expend in terms of firepower, the more weakened his forces became, and if they refused to join, well, there was another way missing nin could be useful. They would fill the coffers of the rebel army. Zabuza was just as shocked about the outcome of this battle as his now dead enemy, but he was also disappointed that he would not have been able to at least approach his idol, Juzo Biwa-san. The might of the S-rank ninja would have bolstered the rebel army and may have ensured their victory, one way or the other. Now, however, those plans were dashed all to hell by some snot-nosed genin who more than likely got lucky. Still, even Mamachi had to give the kid some grudging respect. Even ninja as skilled as himself would have had difficulty taking on a shinobi as powerful as the Nightmare. "I'd better report this to Mei-chan," he growled, then he smiled and added, as he began making his way home to the Land of Water, "Isn't it interesting to find members of her mother's clan, alive and well, and living in Konoha?" The unpredictable maelstrom. 1 month ago, when Team 7 and the Anbu arrived at the bridge, a month later, they were prepared for what may come. They had trained and progressed in water walking to the point that they could literally run around the archipelago of Nami no Kuni. They had trained themselves into exhaustion before getting back up and training some more. To be honest, they were as ready as they would ever be for the fight that was to come. Whether they won or lost this battle, they knew there was nothing more they could do. It was all in the hands of Kami-sama and their own choices in battle. Shiroyuki, the tool of the Uzumaki clan of Konoha, had been ordered to stay back at the home of Tazuna no Nami to better protect Tazuna's family, just in case they were kidnapped to use as leverage. Over the past 2 weeks, she had proven herself to be a trusted ally, helping each and every one of them in their training, and in turn, they have helped her improve as well, not just in ninja skills, but to become a more independent person. The term tool is what ninja use to describe a vassal, one that belonged to the clan, with all the rights and privileges of other ninja, but instead of being loyal to a village, she was loyal only to the clan that owned her. She could love, breed, and speak her mind to whomever she wanted, though she was answerable for her conduct as was any citizen of Konoha, and if the village did not punish her, the Uzumaki clan could. Her name had been changed to Uzumaki Shiroyuki and was now a member of that clan. In terms of ninja skills, she was given the Kubikurubjim and had to learn Kenjutsu as all Uzumaki are required to do. It didn't have to be her primary skill, but she had to at least hold her own as a swordswoman. Shiroyuki was not the only combatant to have improved her skills in the last 2 weeks. The other ninja in the group have all made good strides in their training. The 3 jonin had each improved in individual skills, as well as team skills. Yugao, Height and Naruto, not to mention Shiroyuki, had trained and practiced their Kenjutsu, and surprisingly the ice user had already mastered the basics of swordsmanship under the tutelage of her late master. As a result, all they needed to do was introduce her to Uzumaki Musashi Ryu, the sword style of the Whirlpool clan. Every Uzumaki could adapt other sword styles that suited them best, but all of them were required to learn the Uzumaki blade. Naruto and Shiroyuki were even inducted into the basics of Tsuki Mitsurugi Ryu Height's Kendo. Yugao, being Height's girlfriend, was already at the advanced stages of said style, and it harmonized quite well with Uzumaki Musashi. Speaking of Height, he no longer coughed like he did before, or at all, and it was all thanks to Naruto and Hinata. When medical chakra was used on him, it worked for a few days, and then the cough would return, nobody knew why. Naruto ended up having to use his AVS technique, and when he turned it upon his future in-law, he found several spots on his lungs. They appeared to be from a virus, until they found an unusual growth. It was a cyst, which seemed to have rooted itself within the branches of Height's lungs. It seemed to thrive on medical chakra. When medical chakra was used, it gathered the chakra up like a jellyfish in the ocean and retracted its tentacles until it grew hungry again. Naruto and Hinata, with Sakura and Shiroyuki as a guide, were able to isolate it. Naruto encircled the mass with his M-field, while Hinata killed it on the molecular level. They were able to move it up his trachea and out of his mouth. They have it preserved for study to determine what it is, for medical purposes, just in case. Heiei-san was laid up for about 5 days, receiving treatment from the 2 medical ninja of their band. Speaking of the Hyuga, Hinata managed to create her own cloning technique. She calls them resonance wave clones. Tominari harm no bunshin. They are as fragile as shadow clones, along with nearly everything else being similar, but they have one advantage over the former jutsu. Hinata can receive real-time data from her clones, as opposed to getting the information once they have been dispelled. The Hyuga heiress gets it live with no delays. She can close that ability down if she wishes, so she does not have to share her awareness and switch between clones or get all of the data at once, though the strain of keeping focus does take a toll. She decided to learn Naruto's Senko Bunshin Jutsu, which added its own benefit because in addition to being able to create their own harm clones, flash clones can also resonate with previously made wave clones, and they get the real-time streaming when they harmonize with the clones. Every ninja of Konoha and the tool of the Uzumaki, in just 2 weeks, had become a force to be reckoned with, well mainly the genin. The other 4, the 2 jonin, the Takebetsu jonin, Takujo, and Shiroyuki, were already at that mark or were quickly approaching it. The genin had nearly perfected their taijutsu, and only experience would allow them to progress beyond their current skill level. Their ninjutsu, which of course included their bloodlines, was second to none for genin and would even make a few chunin proud. When they had left the leaf, all 3 genin had all but mastered breaking out of genjutsu, and only S-rank genjutsu was beyond their grasp. The Konoha law forbade placing such high-ranking illusions on fellow leaf ninja or citizens. S-ranked are the class of illusions that can kill people. Only by obtaining permission from the Hokage and only under strict guidelines could S-rank genjutsu be practiced. The advanced ninja of the leaf had even improved themselves, as formidable as they were before. Now they realized that as soon as they had achieved their current ranking, they had stopped trying as hard. They realized they had lost that hunger, that drive to improve themselves, and their training in the past couple of weeks had been to try and get back and keep the eye of the tiger. An. Wink, the fierce look illuminating their eyes as they walked onto the nearly completed bridge, said that their training had been successful. Kurenai and Yuga realized if they wanted to defeat the old way of looking at Kunoichi, then they had to step up and show the world that other women could rise to the same heights as Tsunade of the Sannin. Jackman, now that his affliction had been cured and his lungs were healthy, could now look forward to rising in rank to true jonin, and perhaps even further. He had begun to wonder if he could find a summoning contract for lizards, his little boy fantasies, that all men, no matter how old, have, now included. Heiei Jackman, the Tokage Sennin, sage of the lizards. The leaf ninja learned many things while here in Nami that were not related to their work as ninja. By now, Naruto and Jackman have become journeyman construction workers, while the Kunoichi learned what it took to run such a business. As they approached the bridge, the workers had not yet arrived, which had become standard operating procedure since the Konoha ninja came to Wave. They would go to the bridge every morning and check out the scene, then if the coast were clear, they would send out clones to their homes, telling them it was time for work. Of course, even with that extra layer of security, it had not stopped Azuna from hemorrhaging staff. It had gotten so bad that last week, the bridge builder had almost had to close down to hire more workers. It would have come to that if it had not been for Naruto and Jackman. When the blonde genin heard what their employer was contemplating, he offered himself and his Senko no Bunshin to fill the positions. Azuna was blown away and asked why the boy was doing this for him. Naruto just shook his head and replied, "It's not for you, old man. This bridge may have started as your dream, but it has now become a symbol of hope, and false hope is worse than no hope at all. If you stop now, I fear you may never be able to start again, and then, this whole mission would have been for nothing." The boy's smile and the look in his eyes told Azuna that his assertions were not from naive idealism, but from a person who had experienced such things. Heiei Jackman added his own help through his own flash clones, not to mention his previous experience from other missions. It was not just the actual construction workers that felt threatened, but the office staff as well, and even before Tazuna returned with help from Konoha, the office and supply managers had either quit or disappeared. Tsunami, Tazuna's young daughter, a woman of about 20, had to quit school in no Kuni to return home and take over the office. She was a pretty, young lady, taller than most, and one of the few civilian women not to look down on Kunoichi. She treated all of the ladies the way she treated any woman close to her age, as a friend in the making. She was very good at what she did, but even she could not do everything in the office by herself, so the Kunoichi, using their own clones, learned how to run the day-to-day operations big construction projects need. Thus, Team Blood, the Anbu and the Tool, in addition to normal ninja training and guard duty, learned how to perform construction work. They of course, were new to this type of work and had to start at the bottom like everybody. They learned quickly, with their cloning techniques, about 500 per day total, were able to learn from mistakes and accomplishments. Their retention rate was astronomical. Naruto and Hinata suddenly stiffened, they looked over at the others and gave a silent nod, their enemies were waiting for them. When they walked onto the bridge, the day was bright and clear, and standing amidst the wreckage of their construction equipment stood 4 individuals, 3 shinobi, and 1 kunoichi. The kunoichi seemed to be the leader, since the men stood exactly 1 step behind her. As the groups approached, the ninja assessed each other as they drew near. Naruto was no exception. His kitagan blazed from behind his visor and balaclava. The kunoichi was tall, a few centimeters taller than Kurenai-sensei, and slightly more voluptuous. Her hair was an auburn shade but styled in a way meant to distract the eye and draw it to where she wanted you to look. The majority of it went down her back, with locks of it peeking around the front. Some of it had been styled into a topknot, but it was her bangs that distracted an opponent the most. There were 4 of them, 2 short and 2 long. The short ones were the most unusual. One was combed traditionally until just above the left eyebrow, the second was combed until it reached below her right eye. This configuration would probably lead many an assailant to believe it was an opening, but Naruto could tell, despite covering her right eye, that lock of hair was pretty thin. She would never lose enough of her visibility to make any attacks on her right side, a sure thing. The long bangs, however, were a blatant distraction, since both of them descended until they almost touched her cleavage, stopping right at the neckline of her ocean blue long-sleeved calf-length dress. The skirt had been shorn off, starting at her right hip just below her white belt and moving down her left leg until it reached her mid-calf. Her right hip was covered with a dark gray miniskirt, and though he could only see her right side from his perspective, mesh armor covered her body from her neckline down to her toes. Both legs were covered by light gray, knee-length, shin guards, with matching sandals. The only visible weapons were a pair of swords, sheathed at her waist perpendicular to her spine. The only visible part Naruto could see were the nondescript brown hilts and dull metal tsuba coming out from behind her on both sides. The 3 men standing behind her were as unique as one could get. From oldest to youngest was a man appearing to be in his late 40s, early 50s, with blue hair that was heavily moussed to a point. He only had one blue eye, his right, and the left was covered by an eye patch. His ears were accessorized with a pair of earrings that had the kanji character, Tahir, written on them. Naruto could tell from his vantage point that they were some sort of rudimentary seal, but could not determine their purpose without closer study. His clothes consisted of the standard Kiri pinstriped suit and ocean-hued robe, trimmed in white stripes. It looked like the same hunter nin robe worn by Shiroyuki at their first encounter. Naruto, however, concluded that where his tool's wardrobe was fake, this man here was very much the real kunai. He was a true hunter nin. He stood on the left side of the woman, on the far side of the bridge from Naruto, but standing on her right was a tall, muscular man with sallow skin and black spiky hair. His forehead protector was turned sideways, and on his body, Naruto could see the neckline of a dark shirt with matching baggy pants, over which he wore the same Ryashi nin robe as the older man. The sleeves, however, were short, and so was the cut of the robe. It ended at his mid-calf, the same as the kunoichi's, thus revealing mimetic wrist and leg warmers and shinobi sandals. He also carried a standard katana, strapped to his back. The third and final shinobi stood facing Naruto directly. He was in his late teens, early 20s. He was short for his age, only slightly taller than Naruto. He had short blue hair, dark eyes, and when he opened his lips, Naruto could see a row of sharpened teeth, a sure sign that he was a member of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Every swordsperson worth their rice knew about the 7 and knew about or had at least heard about their blades. Naruto looked past the young man's clothes and studied the bandage-wrapped bundle on his back, noting the double hilts peeking up over the right shoulder. That's got to be Hiramekure, he concluded. Kibaken are the only other blades that can be considered 2 blades, but they're supposed to be slender with a couple of horns along the blade. These look like he's got a fish strapped to his back, Naruto mused as he assessed his opponents. Naruto briefly turned his eyes to cast his gaze down the line to his teammates and family. I consider them all my family, and I will protect them at all costs. He would be facing this man on his own for now, because between him and Hinata and Sakura, who would battle the old man, was his aunt, Yugao, and his future in-law, Heijaku. They would face the tall guy. Dujenin facing down, a veteran jonin, with more experience than even Kurenai-sensei. Talk about long odds of winning, let alone surviving. I'm not so worried about Yugao Oba-chan or Jekum-san, they're Anbu, they probably face down guys like this all the time, and it's 2-on-1. Looking beyond the Anbu, Naruto saw that Kurenai-sensei was facing the enemy Kunoichi alone as well. While Naruto had every faith in her abilities, that's not how Konohinin fight. We fight as a team, whenever possible, we always try to outnumber opponents. He remembered, me and Kurenai-sensei are alone at the moment, I'm going to try to rectify that. He might be one of the 7, but I'll wager a whole month of ramen that the Kunoichi is the most dangerous and powerful of all 4 of them. I need to even the odds, he resolved. While the other members of his team began chatting with their enemies, Naruto just began a casual stride toward the swordsman. Are you really one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist? Naruto asked. CHMJKRM could not help the proud smile that crossed his face. Hi, Konoha-nin-san, I am. Before the Mist Ninja Rebel could react, Naruto leveled his blaster at his enemy's face and said, "Plasma release." "Blaster bolt," he snapped, as an angry red light shot at the young man, faster than the speed of sound. It struck him right between the eyes, breaking his glasses, but the kinetic force of the blast was so strong it flung the kid several meters back down the bridge. He landed hard on the stone surface before rolling another meter and stopping with his back to everybody. Almost immediately, a pool of blood began to spread out and away from the body of the Mist Ninja. The shockingly brutal display of power had stunned everybody into silence and immobility, but it was not over. As soon as the body came to a halt, Naruto used his photokinetics to lift the blades free of the body and flung them out into the bay, where they sank to the depths. Satisfied with his handiwork, Naruto returned his blaster to its holster, then drew his 10-fist sword. He spun around with a solemn look on his face. "Now that the numbers are about even, let's get to it." Azuna's bridge. Nami no Kuni, a month after Juzo Biwa's demise, Kurenai walked down toward the bridge being built by their client. She was in the middle, with Yugao-chan and Jekum-kun flanking her. The three genin under her care were slightly in front of her. The Violette Hyuga was walking to her right, directly in front of Yugao, and Kurenai could not have been more proud of her surrogate sister for the strides she has made in her training than if Hinata was her actual sister. She has honed her taijutsu skill to almost A-ranked quality. She doubted there were any genin in Konoha that could stop her when she used her taijutsu, and that was without her taijutsu or Shin no Kenkaku. When she used one or both of those birthrights, she had proven to be a tough opponent, even for the advanced ninja of their group to fight. Couple that with the use of her elemental chakra, use of sensory genjutsu, her wave clones and flash clones, and she could take on and hold her own with all three of the advanced fighters. All that was left was for her to gain some battle experience, and she had the possibility of eclipsing even the strength of Tsunade-sama. Kurenai moved her gaze from Hinata to her Rosette Kunoichi and another romantic rival for her other genin's heart, Sakura no Konoha. As always, when looking at the young woman, Kurenai's thoughts and feelings toward her were conflicted. On one hand there was pride and admiration for Sakura. They had all dismissed her as nothing more than a fangirl, hoping that by sucking up to certain members of certain clans, they could marry into said clan and reap the rewards and benefits that came with their new station in life. Serious Kunoichi looked upon those women with barely concealed contempt. They were the ones that contributed to the belief in most civilians' minds that Kunoichi were effectively useless on the battlefield and could only be dangerous when they slept with their opponent. Which was how Sakura's own parents thought and had tried to instill that belief in their own daughter. Well, Sakura had fooled them all, with the possible exception of Kurenai's other best friend, Anko. Sakura had her own mind and wanted to be a modern Kunoichi, but her parents' beliefs were so ingrained in their minds, they refused to let her train in anything they considered improper for a young lady to practice. They all but pushed her at the Uchiha in her class, but Sakura was stubborn and had her own mind. She wanted to be a real Kunoichi, not just a fangirl hussy, so she took to sneaking out of her house at night to go and train in the things her parents were too short-sighted to let her practice at home. She was only able to practice with the academy taijutsu style, and a few kunai and shuriken she was able to smuggle behind their backs. They actually contributed greatly to their little girl's training, though they never even realized it. They aided her in training her stealth and evasion skills, as well as her skills at deception. As far as they knew, their daughter was intelligent but weak. They only allowed her to do her academic work at home, and for 4 years, that's how she trained. She would do chakra control, ninjutsu practice, forms training, and throwing practice at night, with a little sparring, whenever she would go over to Ino's house without her parents. She only pretended to have a crush on Sasuke, so she deceived not only her parents and the whole class, but the whole village as well, including the one that Sakura actually had a crush on. She did all of that on her own, with some occasional cover by Ino, for a total of 4 years, and she was average in skill and strength for her class. When she was 10, Sakura came to the attention of another Kunoichi of the Leaf and one of Kurenai's best friends, Mitarashi Anko, another pariah of the village, along with Naruto. Anko has never given Kurenai, Yugao, or Hana a real definitive reason for taking such an interest in the Rosette's development, and they never really found out about it until after Sakura told her mother off the day of her graduation. All they knew at the time, on some nights when they would be out on a girls' night, Anko would disappear at some point during the night, and if she could not do that, she blatantly called it an early evening, usually citing work the next day, or that she had a hot piece of ass waiting for her, tied up at an undisclosed location. They were none the wiser. Their best friend was known for her chaotic temperament and unpredictable behavior, so they never thought anything about it as anything other than Anko being Anko. For 2 years, she trained Sakura in her Hibi taijutsu style and everything else she would need to be a formidable warrior. Anko instilled a sense of kunoichi pride in Sakura, which formed into a strong bond between the two women. The only person Sakura regards in higher esteem than Anko is Naruto Uzumaki, which is where we find the other hand in her relationships with Sakura and Hinata. In this hand we find envy, and Kurenai would not say animosity. She does not hate Sakura at all, and she could never have anything but love for Hinata. If it came down to it, Kurenai would willingly share anything with the Violette, even her man. How can you hate someone for falling in love with the same man you fell for? Kurenai's feelings for the blonde were quite a surprise even to herself. They came on so suddenly that she has often wondered if she may be under a genjutsu. She wondered about it enough that she sought out the patriarch of the Kurama clan to make sure that she was not being forced to love Naruto. She may be the genjutsu mistress of Konoha, but the members of the Kurama clan lived and breathed that discipline from the moment they were born. Kurenai turned her head to look at her last student, the only male under her tutelage, and the only man since she was a genin she has ever felt love for. She may have felt burgeoning feelings for Sarutobi-sama's son, Asuma, before he left for the capital, but she had forgotten about them over the years. Then, he died protecting the daimyo from betrayal by his own guards, and her feelings for him ended as she mourned him as a fellow Konohanin and moved on with her life. Then when she was 14, one of her best friends found her nephew living in squalor on the streets of Konoha, a victim of the fools that infested the government at that time. He was the Jinchuriki of the Kikbi no Kitsune, the most powerful Biju of them all. It has been said that if the one through the seven tails, wherever they may be, joined forces to battle the nine, they would all lose. Unless they somehow allied with the Hachibi would they even have a chance of winning, and the council ran the risk of alienating him, to the point that if he ever contacted the fox, he might have been tempted to release it, just to stop suffering. If that had happened, their village would have been destroyed. Not even Jiraiya-sama was skilled enough at sealing to recapture the Kikbi if it had broken loose, and there was only one Uzumaki left that could have held it. Kurenai, at first, would babysit the young Uzumaki when Yugao would be on a mission, and later, during the basic training and subsequent missions of Anbu. She helped Naruto better control his chakra while he was at the academy, and as much as Yugao taught him how to treat women, especially kunoichi. She watched him grow into the ninja art genius he is today and grew to admire his tenacity when he failed the genin graduation exam twice. He may have been a genius with ninjutsu, and as in Uzumaki he was a natural genius with seals, something that he got from both of his parents, but that did not stop him from putting in the hard work needed to become a ninja, and even when he failed, he never gave up. That was something Kurenai admired about Naruto. He was a genius at ninjutsu and fuinjutsu, but he did not allow it to make him arrogant. He still took time to learn and perfect those arts, which because of his aptitude, came easily to him, but Naruto liked to challenge himself. The ninja and sealing arts came easily to him, so he practiced his taijutsu, his kenjutsu, and his byukujutsu until he raised those skills to be equal to the first two arts, and that is not even accounting for his 3, now 4 bloodlines. Kurenai knew Naruto had developed a crush on her from being around him so much in the beginning. He found her to be beautiful, sure. Something she had been told since she became a genin, which she has learned to use to her advantage on certain missions, but he has told his aunt and the other 2 kunoichi that have raised him what makes him like Kurenai so much was because she accepted her beauty as just another tool in her ninja arsenal. While most serious kunoichi didn't care over much about their physical attractiveness, many tried to hide behind a mask, whether it was a literal mask like an Anbu mask, a clan mask, or a metaphorical one like sadism or ferocity. Kurenai turned it into an asset. He saw it as just a side benefit of her physical training, but one she uses as effectively as the kunai in her hand or the genjutsu she has perfected. Whether it was admiration because of his work ethic or what he said to her best friends about her, somewhere along the way, her admiration turned to attraction, and later, on the night he was accused of stealing the sacred scroll, something she never believed for an instant, he'd worked too hard to earn his headband, just to throw it all away by committing treason, turned to infatuation. Kurenai both praised and cursed the Hokage for placing him on her team. When he became a genin, he would be an adult and legal for her to pursue. Then Kurenai was blocked by of all people the Hokage when he was placed on her team, where another law prevented her from making him her boyfriend. Telling him about her feelings and outing her fellow kunoichi on the first day was the only thing she could do to let him know how she felt about him, that and some light flirting here and there. Then, he did something that altered her feelings toward him forever. He answered my feelings and that of his other kunoichi teammates in such a way that let us know we all have an equal shot with him, and did it in a way that protected my career. Naruto bought the team a gift that told them how important they are to him. He bought them the same armor he bought for himself and his only living blood relative, someone he sees as his mother. That single gift gave them a message. He wanted to protect them. He saw them as precious to him, as precious as his family, as precious as his own life, and for the red-eyed kunoichi, it catapulted her feelings for Naruto from simple infatuation and affection to full-blown love. Naruto not only told them about his feelings, but he did it in a way to assure all three kunoichi that he respected them as both women and fellow warriors by placing them on equal footing. It showed Kurenai that he respected her Jonin sensei status enough to not put her in jeopardy of losing either one by following her heart. She also suspected that his new drive to better himself is as much about becoming a Chunin, so he will no longer be her student as it is to become as strong as he can. Kurenai was brought out of her thoughts as they approached a bridge when Naruto and Hinata's heads jerked up and directed all of their attention to three people who had appeared in front of them. They were three men and a woman, with the woman obviously in charge. They must be new ninja Gato hired after we killed Juzo-Biwa. We should have known we wouldn't be able to complete this mission without a confrontation. We have only one more week of construction before the bridge is connected to fire. Gato is probably getting desperate. Kurenai took a close look at the kunoichi facing her as she and her team approached the bridge. He must have shelled out a lot of ryo to get these ninja. CHMJKRM of Kiri is the youngest member to ever be inducted into the Seven. He must already be pretty strong if he earned a spot with those savages. It seems Naruto will be fighting him. Prodigy versus prodigy. I wonder who will prevail. Byakugengarashi no Ao no Kiri, known to specialize in killing Hyuga, rumored to have acquired a transplant of the vaunted Byakugan. It seems Hinata and Sakura will face him alone, and from the look on her face, Hinata knows of him. Don't let your anger get the best of you, Hinata-chan. Familial pride does not help with vengeance. Between CHMJKRM and the woman is the master of the silent kill method, Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the mists. Some say he is the second coming of the nightmare. Yuga-chan and Jekken-kun should have no problem with him. The most dangerous of them all was the kunoichi, Mei Terumi, known as the goddess of mist, and other than Juzo-Biwa and Kisame Hoshigaki, is one of the only 3 S-ranked ninja Kurigakure ever produced and the youngest in history. She is also a member of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, wielding Kiba-ken and 2 Kekkei Genkai, lava release and boil release. Surprised Kiri let her come on this mission. I never thought I'd see you on a petty C-rank, Terumi-san. Kurenai wondered, keeping a petty despot in power doesn't seem like a worthy mission for someone like you. It's definitely below your skill level to take on a mission like this, Blood Squad sensei accused, so I wonder what it was that brought Kiri no Megami here. On the contrary, Shinku Shinkurm, missions like this keep me humble, Mei replied with a smile, they help me stay in perspective. She turned her head to see the blonde Konoha genin continue to advance toward her youngest companion, reminding me where I come. After the briefest of exchanges between the two boys, the blonde genin pulls an L-shaped contraption from a leather holster. The handle appeared to conform to his grip, which curved into a metallic blue steel body, holding a cylinder which seemed to begin turning, as the boy said, Burazumatan. Burasidhoten, as a vibrant red light, shot at CHMJKRM, faster than the speed of sound. It struck him right between the eyes, breaking his glasses, but the kinetic force of the blast was so strong it flung her friend several meters back down the bridge. He landed hard on the stone surface before rolling another meter and stopping with his back to everybody, and almost immediately, a pool of blood began to spread out and away from the body of the mist ninja. A shockingly brutal display of power had stunned everybody into silence and immobility, but it was not over. As soon as the body came to a halt, Naruto used his photokinetics to lift the blades free of the body and flung them out into the bay, where they sank to the depths. Satisfied with his handiwork, Naruto returned his blaster to its holster, then drew his 10-fist sword. He spun around with a solemn look on his face. Now that the numbers are about even, let's get to it. Even Zabuza was caught by surprise by the boy's vicious action, but his aunt was not one to let a good distraction go to waste. While Kiri no Akuma watched the death of his colleague, the current Ichizoku no Atama no Uzumaki grasped the Uzumaki family blade by the hilt and faster than a lizard's tongue flicks, had the blade out and through Zabuza's neck. He was dead before his head hit the ground as his body wilted and fell over. Yugao completed the motion of her cut, which flung the blood from the blade and brought the blade around into the scabbard on her back. Having tasted blood for the first time in years, the sword showed its true form, which meant a difference in the tsuba if nothing else. Instead of the yin-yang symbol, it was the burnished metallic form of the Uzumaki spiral. CHMJKRM, Zabuza, Mei whispered in sorrow. She would have retaliated, but she could not because no Uzumaki will attack their own kin, especially anybody wielding that blade. Because it was the blade of the daimyo of Yuzu, to whom all Uzumaki pay their allegiance, regardless of whatever land houses them, and Uzumaki's first allegiance is to the holder of that blade. Mei fell to her knees and bowed her head to the ground, and in a strong, unwavering voice, I, Uzumaki Terumi Mei, do hereby forswear all allegiances from this point in time and behind me, and transfer my loyalty to the Uzumaki of Konoha, from now until the day I die. Mei-chan, what the hell are you doing? You are betraying us, for them, Ao shouted, totally forgetting his own opponents, to his doom. Peyton. Rakuji Inazuma Danmaku no Senhari, 64,000 needle, lightning bolt barrage, came a feminine voice. While he was looking away, a fusillade of chakra-infused death pelted the former Kiri Anbu, striking Tenketsu and nerve endings with equal ease, rendering him as vulnerable as any other man his age. "Hi," Kurenai shouted, and with a burst of her chakra, the images that were filling the minds of the Kiri rebels' leaders was terminated. They all stood as they were before on the bridge. CHMJKRM was alive and well, as was Zabuza, while Lao stood hale and hearty as he was at the beginning of the Genjutsu Kurenai cast over the area the first day, as a booby trap if they had enemies waiting for them when they got here. Mei just grinned and said, "That was pretty good, Kurenai-kun. I never even knew we were in a Genjutsu until you broke it yourself." "My apologies, Mei-san," Kurenai offered with a slight bow. "That was a trap not meant for you. I set it to protect in case Gato tried to destroy the bridge when we were not here. It was meant to force you to identify yourself and give you some idea of our capabilities, while also exposing your weaknesses. As individuals and as a group," Kurenai informed her Mist Kunoichi counterpart while pointing to CHMJKRM. "He is overly proud about being the youngest of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. It is a laudable achievement, but not something to let down your guard over." She pointed to Ao. "The old man is too dismissive of young opponents, arrogantly believing he can take anyone not his age or older. Don't forget that you don't know everything, and techniques are constantly evolving," Kurenai admonished. To Zabuza she said, "You shouldn't be so envious or dismissive of your young teammate, he has earned his position among the 7. Mei continued to grin, which lessened when she asked, "And my failing, Kunoichi-kun, what great failing do you see in me?" "Merely a fear that if you let your full name be known, you'll lose your identity and only earn credence under your true clan name," Kurenai answered with a confident smile. "But you are already an S-rank ninja, with your own, well-established nin. Surely, telling others your name won't damage your reputation." Mei's own smile brightened her already beautiful face. "You are quite correct, Crimson Mirage-san, though that is an old fear, I have quite come to terms with my identity. As you may have realized, my full name is Uzumaki Terumi Mei," she supplied, while turning to look at her fellow Uzumaki. "My mother married into the Terumi clan shortly before the fall of Yuzu," she explained, before turning back to Kurenai. "You are correct, I do not work for Gato. I have no interest in furthering his despicable regime here in Wave." Mei all but spat. "If I had the leisure, I would take pleasure in ending his miserable existence. I'm here, first to meet my fellow clanspersons," nodded in their direction, "and ask a favor of them." Naruto and Yugao approached Mei cautiously, wary of a trap, but close enough to listen. "You have recently taken down an S-rank missing nin, Juzo Biwa," Mei inquired, to Naruto's nod. "In doing so, you acquired a certain item, Kubikirabacho," she added, to another nod from Naruto. "We were wondering if we could acquire this weapon from you. It's a symbol of village pride, and we would appreciate having it returned to us." Yugao's eyes narrowed. "Why should we care about the pride of Kiri? We're Konohinin." "I'm not here as a representative of Kiri," Mei answered. "I am the leader of the Rebel Alliance, in opposition to the tyrannical leadership of the Yonde Mizukage, who has begun persecuting clans and individuals with Kekkei Genkai, going so far as to execute people merely for possessing one." "That's so stupid," Naruto fumed. "Any Kage or leader of a village should view bloodlines as a source of strength for their village." "What could he be thinking?" he asked. "Never try to ascertain the motives of a madman, Naruto-san," Mei taught. "It is a lesson in futility." Yugao had been thinking during the exchange of her younger clan's people, but turned to her nephew. "What do you think, Naruto Oi-san? You're the one who acquired the weapon for the Uzumaki clan, so you have the right to determine who owns it." Naruto pinched his bottom lip. "Personally, I don't have a problem turning over the sword, it's not feasible with my fighting style. At most, I was going to use it as a way to practice my Kenjutsu. It would be perfect for enhancing my swing," Naruto explained, before smirking and knocking his knuckles against the hilt of his own sword and adding, "If I can learn to swing that huge slab of steel, this puppy could be even easier to wield." Mei was smiling at the prospect of getting the executioner's blade so easily, but Naruto turned serious. "But I am not willing to just give it away, it's a special blade, and a man gave his life for it. It would dishonor his memory if I just gave it to anyone who asked for it," Naruto stated with a hard stare. "The executioner's blade is not a party favor, boy," the blue-haired Anbu snapped. "It is a national treasure of Water Nation. We can't just be giving one of the 7 blades away. Why in my day?" "Ow," Mei hissed, "shut up or I'll kill you." "It is his by right of combat," she snapped at him, before placing her hand on her own swords. "He won the blade, fair and square, from Juzo Biwa. He doesn't have to entertain me at all about a barter. He could tell me to piss off, and I could do nothing to him." As is the tradition of the 7, Mei admonished the veteran ninja, who apparently did not know the customs of the 7 blades at all. "I'm trying to do this with as little bloodshed as possible. In case you haven't noticed, we're outnumbered and surrounded." Plus, that genjutsu you witnessed in the beginning wasn't just an illusion, Yugao informed them, it was a vision of the future, so mind what you say, old man, especially to my nephew, she concluded with a growl. For something so vital, something equally as vital should be required, Naruto mused to himself, then an idea struck him, I won't give you the sword, but as they stiffened, he added hurriedly, but that doesn't mean it cannot still aid you in your cause. You see what I do on the blade, I have given it to someone else to use in my stead, I've given it to my tool. At their understanding eyes, he continued to explain, my vassal, who is also from Kiri and is even a bloodline user, so she falls into perfect line with the ideals of your side of the rebellion. Her name is Uzumaki Shiroyuki, formerly of the Yuki clan, and she is quite formidable in her own right, a rank status in ninjutsu, iryujutsu, medical techniques, and taijutsu, still a novice with kenjutsu, but she has mastered the basics of swordplay. She needs to be trained in Uzumaki Musashi style, Naruto informed Mei, who nodded, that is a universal Uzumaki requirement, and she has the bloodline limit. Kreitner ice release. So, what do you say, Mei-kun? Naruto asked, the sword will still be in the fight with you, even if Kiri will no longer own it. Mei gave the matter some serious thought, it was her mission to secure the blade for the side of the rebels, and this will be mission accomplished, even if the blade will have to leave mist once the fighting has ceased. She began to nod, I agree to your terms, Uzumaki-san, I will need to evaluate this Shiroyuki's strength personally, to see if your claims of her prowess are valid, but even if she's not as formidable as you claim, her medical acumen would be a boon to our forces. I accept your terms, Naruto-san, she exclaimed with an extended hand, which Naruto accepted with his own. Just so we're clear here, Uzumaki Terumi Mei-san, Naruto began with steel in his eyes, Shiroyuki and Kubikirabacho are a package deal, when the fighting is over, you will personally escort her, and the sword, to Konoha, yourself. If Shiroyuki turns up in Konoha without the sword, you better be standing next to her, Naruto explained, before adding, she is under your protection, you are responsible for her well-being, both mentally and physically. If something happens to her, whether by the enemy or an ally, or if something somehow happens to both of them that prevents them from serving me, you will take her place as my tool, Naruto concluded, then added, as a crimson halo enshrouded his body, do you, by the blood of the Uzumaki, swear this to me, Uzumaki Terumi Mei-san? If Mei's eyes could have gotten any wider at what she saw, they would have popped out of their sockets. The Uzumaki blood oath to anybody else, swearing by your blood, would mean only slightly more binding than simply giving your word, only the personal integrity of the oath taker would ensure fulfillment of the promise. To the Uzumaki, swearing a blood oath was literally putting your life on the line if you didn't do everything in your power to keep your promise, and if you failed, your life was forfeit, no matter how powerful you were as a ninja. Closing her eyes, Mei summoned up the exact same energy as her male Uzumaki counterpart. I, Uzumaki Terumi Mei, do hereby swear by the blood of the Uzumaki that Shiroyuki and Kubikirabacho will return to Konoha at the end of our current conflict. Should either of them be destroyed or unable to return to Uzumaki Naruto for any reason, then I, Uzumaki Terumi Mei, will become the tool of Uzumaki Naruto of Konohagakure no Sado for the rest of my life. The crimson energy continued to grow before silently flaring to be a little bit brighter than the current noonday sun, causing everybody except the oath-bound party themselves to flinch back. It was suddenly as if Mei could feel the icy grip of death clutching at her heart. The sensation lasted only for an instant, but now, Mei and Naruto knew that their oath had been ratified by Shinigami's power. If Mei tried to break her oath, she would die, reasons and circumstances did not matter. Now, Mei's life was tied to a woman she had never even met, such was her commitment to the cause. Oath of the Tool. At the home of Tazuna, the bridge builder, to say this month had been one of the most turbulent in Shiroyuki's life would be a lie. It was safe to say that the months she spent running from her family home in Mizu-no-Kuni was easily the hardest time of her life. There were times before she met Juzo-sama where she was seriously considering selling her body just to find food and a place to sleep. Even she knew she was prettier, even for her age, than most of the adult women Shiroyuki saw walking around on street corners. At that time, she had been on the streets long enough to know what kind of women they were, and she had been corrupted enough to understand what sort of perversions the world contained, most of them revolving around sex. Luckily, it never came to that, for just prior to making her final decision was when she met Juzo-sama, who began her training, which gave her more options than to become a whore. That would happen only when the last vestiges of her pride had withered away and became as dust, when the only thing that mattered to her was her survival or that of another precious person. However, this most recent month, while not her most traumatic, was certainly her weirdest, by far. When she awakened from her fainting spell, she found herself in a house owned by the same man she and Juzo-sama had been sent to kill. Treated as just another guest in her house by Tazuna's daughter, who didn't even look upon her with suspicion. Not that Tsunami had anything to worry herself over, what with 6 ninja in her home. The same ninja that were able to fight and defeat her master, one of the strongest men she had ever met. Only a few ninjas she knew of had the power to take down Juzo Biwa, Kiri no Akumu, and as she learned later, he was taken down by a rookie ninja. Someone, barely out of his village's training academy, had killed her owner, something she was loath to believe at first, until she got the chance to spar with him. It was a few days ago, her grief over Biwa-sama had run its course, and she needed something to take her mind off of him. Shiroyuki began thinking about her future and where she wanted it to go. She did not wish to be alone, she needed a purpose, something she could accomplish. Shiroyuki decided to go for a walk when she came upon the boy who killed her former master. He was reclining against a tree, taking a break from training when she found him. She did not know she was moving until she found herself descending upon Naruto's sleeping form. All she knew was that she wanted to avenge her master. Her senbon were in her hand, between her fingers, ready to be deployed. She landed where she thought he was. Only to find that he was not where she thought he was. She found herself unleashing her fury upon the ground below him. Behind her, a cascade of bluish-white light began to coalesce. Shiroyuki caught the light from the corner of her eye and by channeling chakra to her legs, dashed to the side to avoid any reprisals he may have for her. She reached about a meter to her right before turning back to send her senbon at Naruto, which again missed him completely. I'm being too hasty with my throws and I am not facing him properly. She brought out more senbon. This time she was looking directly at the blonde. When she made her throw, there seemed to be a distortion in the air, like how a straw looks when immersed in water. Her thrown object sailed right past him. She appeared to be throwing wildly, but Shiroyuki knew her skill with senbon was unparalleled. She was good enough that she could target specific nerves of the human body with her needles, enough to induce paralysis in all parts of the body, even to put it into a death-like state if needed. So, she knew she was not missing, he just was not present at the place her eyes said he was. He was using some form of refractory genjutsu to misdirect her senses. If I cannot target him specifically, then I'll target the area in front of me. There was plenty of humidity in the area, enough for her to deploy her water needles. She went through a short series of hand signs before saying, water style. 1,000 needles of death. This caused a number of water needles to form in midair, surrounding her blonde foe, and with a wave of her hand, hurled the fusillade of death directly at Naruto. Naruto went through his own series of hand signs as soon as she began hers. His Kitagen was blazing as he watched her go through her signs. He cannot see chakra while it's still in the body, but once it begins to be molded, it becomes visible to him and allows him to see what kind of jutsu is being flung at him. Chakra, as he has discovered, once it leaves the coils, fluoresces at the microwave bandwidth. It is how the ninja oscillates their chakra that determines what kind of jutsu they are using. It is not about frequency, it is about amplitude, from the narrowest amplitude for fire jutsu to the widest for earth jutsu, with water, wind, and lightning, in that order, somewhere in between. Ironically, Jinjutsu is at an even wider amplitude than Earth Ninjutsu, and Naruto has no idea why any of this works the way it does. For now he just accepts that and moves on. Thus, while Naruto knew not which ninjutsu Shiroyuki would employ, he knew what type she would use and how to possibly counter it. Wind style. Great breakthrough, he said, but instead of using it to retaliate, he directed it around himself, which forced the water needles around the funnel of the whirlwind. He knew she was acting on her emotions. This was the first time she was able to meet him alone. Since her master's death, she needed to vent her emotions, or they would consume her. He could have ended this immediately. He had known she was there before she even found him. His fox senses were amazing. He could have ended it before it started, by killing her, something he would have been smart to do, but he did not, because that was not the kind of shinobi he wanted to be. Battles and assassinations were one thing. For battles, it was kill or be killed. With assassinations he was just a tool, a weapon. The client was the killer. He or she was the hand that was used to end someone's life. At least that was how he chose to reconcile that part of the life of a ninja. Naruto was no different in the eyes of the law than a knife or a crossbow. That being said, he knew that some would still seek his life when he killed their loved ones, and Shiroyuki was only the first to do so. Naruto did not want to hurt her more than he had already, but that did not mean he was just going to let her continue to attack him. Naruto's wind was able to capture nearly all of the ice users' water needles, taking control of their flight and adding speed to her already fast-moving projectiles and begin to spit them back toward their mother. This surprised the young Kunoichi, but she still was able to evade them all by jumping to her right. Then she strafed further around the Konoha Genin while forming and launching a continuous barrage of water senbon at him. By this time, Naruto's wind technique had run its course, but he was ready for her when it did. As soon as he completed his spin, there was a snap hiss as a column of orange incandescent plasma extended from both hands to just over a meter long. He held it at a quarter of the length as he used these plasma blades to block and deflect her water senbon while deploying his Kitagen. This is where Shiroyuki begins to smile as she realizes a tactical miscalculation on his part and begins to taunt him. "You're very good, Uzumaki-san," she began disarmingly. "I dare say one of the best I have ever fought against, except for Juzo-sama," she ended with a bitter bite to her voice. "You have quite formidable skills for a genin, and normally, this would be where I ask you to give up the fight, because you've given yourself a distinct disadvantage while battling me." "Why do you believe that, Shiroyuki-san?" the blonde asked the ebonette with a raised eyebrow, while continuing to move his arms to defend against her continuous barrage. Shiroyuki gave him a sinister grin, "Because with both of your hands full, you cannot employ your ninjutsu, or even that refractory genjutsu of yours. I, on the other hand, am not so encumbered," she growled, as she continued to use her left hand to create her elemental ninjutsu, while her right hand began to go through its own separate motions. This surprised Naruto. "Wow, you can use one-handed seals, that's extremely rare, and you're correct, as gifted as I am with ninjutsu, that's a skill I cannot learn. I am not ambidextrous after all." As he was talking, he surreptitiously began to build up his explosive chakra in his legs, "But there is one other skill I have that is just as rare, if not more so, than your one-handed seals." As soon as he finished speaking, he wheeled around in a 270-degree arc, bringing his right leg up high into an axe kick formation, before bringing his leg down into a stomp, while sending all of his explosive chakra into his stomping foot, seal-less ninjutsu. Explosive style. "Shockwave," he bellowed. Faster than lightning, a tide of explosive energy propagated out and away from the Konohinin, sending a torrent of dirt and rock and one pissed-off Kunoichi into the air. Shiroyuki's flight was uncontrolled, and the shockwave of energy had disoriented her, making her unable to correct herself. She would have ended up on the ground in a heap if Naruto had not immediately extinguished his plasma swords and Shunshin directly below her and caught her in his arms. He still, body slammed her into the ground, which proceeded to knock the wind out of her, but it was less than what would have happened if she had hit the ground. Shiroyuki just laid there, barely moving, even after she got her breath back. She felt like she wanted to just sink down through the earth. She did not know when she began to cry, because it just started as a trickle of tears. Then, before long, her body was racked with sobs as her anger, humiliation, and sorrow finally began to emerge and flow out of her. Naruto was watching with an impassive face, though on the inside he was cringing, just like most men do when they see a woman cry. He watched her fall apart for a few minutes, then decided to speak. "Are you ready to have a polite conversation now, or did you want to try to kill me again?" "Just get it over with," the woman ground out through her tears, "just kill me already and be done with it. I don't have any sort of purpose now, what use is a broken tool," she pleaded, "when it can no longer fulfill the function for which it was made." "That depends on what the tool's function truly is, Shiroyuki-san," Naruto answered. "What do you believe your purpose was to Juzo-biwa?" "I was meant to protect him, to act as an extension of his will, when he could not be present," she informed him, "but without him, I am nothing, I cannot be an extension of him, unless he is here." "What a crock," Naruto burst out, "did he tell you that, or are you making that shit up?" Shiroyuki jerked her head up in disbelief that he would mock her, as if the nightmare of the bloody mists, the nightmare who paints the battlefields, would need a 14 or 15-year-old girl to protect him. "In case you forgot, I just fought you, and while your skills are very, very good, they're nowhere near the caliber you'd need to be able to take on the kinds of threats that would require Juzo-biwa to be protected." Shiroyuki's eyes hardened with affront, this coming from the 13-year-old boy who was able to kill him, she snapped back. "Yes, and there were many factors during that fight which contributed to that outcome," Naruto retorted. "I'm not going to sit here and go over all of them, but the two main contributions to my victory are luck and ignorance." "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. "Call it what you will, luck, a miracle, divine intervention, though that may be another way of saying miracle or just a fluke. I'm not going to delude myself into thinking that I can take on S-rank ninja at every turn. I'm still just a genin after all, and I've only been out of the academy for 5 months," Naruto informed her, "and the other contributing factor was ignorance, because Juzo didn't know me. He didn't know that I have 4 bloodlines and considered a ninjutsu prodigy in my village. There may have even been a little arrogance on his part when he faced us," Naruto added. "He was so convinced that we couldn't beat him that he made a rookie mistake, one that all kendo-ka are taught from the very beginning to never allow." "What was it that you think he did that led to his death?" Shiroyuki demanded. "Please tell me." "He allowed his sword hand to be used for something other than holding a weapon," Naruto explained, which brought her up short with an embarrassed look on her face. "I see from the look in your eyes that you know the ramifications of that action. He used that water prison jutsu of his to trap my sensei, with the hand that the hilt was slanted toward, one of my clones substituted with her, and grabbed onto his hand to prevent him from rectifying his blunder. Another clone was hinged into a demon wind Fuma shuriken, the intent was to kill him, but he caught it around the middle. It showed every ounce of skill and experience to be able to do that, but I figured he would catch it, he's too experienced to be caught so easily." As he caught it, another hinged Fuma shuriken was flying toward him in the shadow of the first one. I thought we had him with that one. There was no way he could have caught it, but he surprised us by hopping right over it. As soon as my clone shuriken had passed him, the clone dropped the hinge and ran up to attach itself to Biwa's back, and well, you know what happened after that. Shiroyuki stared into the boy's eyes, searching for any hint of deception and lying, and he was either an exceptional liar or he was telling her the truth. She tore her eyes away from his and in anguish cast them toward the ground. It's true, it has to be, Juzo Biwa is dead because he made a mistake. I think your purpose, at least for him, was to combat his loneliness and to pass on his legacy, Naruto hypothesized. Since he was into men, he wouldn't be passing on his nin to any kids of his own, so he wanted to give it to you. That's just a theory, I didn't know him as a person, just as an enemy, Naruto added defensively, but I have a question for you. Yes, it's true what they say, Shiroyuki thought with a guilty sigh, enemies can know each other better than friends or allies. He only met Juzo once, and Naruto-sama already has a better understanding of him than I did. Yes, Naruto-sama, what is your question, she asked, subconsciously beginning to add honorifics to his name. Why do you need someone else to give you a purpose? Naruto wondered, can you not find your own purpose in life, even if it's just to live one more day, each day? Because I want to be strong, Naruto-sama, the ice user answered, but one can never be truly strong unless they have a precious person they can dedicate themselves to. I used to have nothing, I was 2 steps away from becoming a whore after I ran away from my home. She tells him the story of her home, how she discovered her bloodline, how she killed her father after he killed her mother and was about to kill her too because they held a Kekkei Genkai. She told him about her time on the street where she had to scrounge through the trash for food and fight stray dogs to keep what she found. She told him about how Juzo Biwa found her, saying she had the same eyes he did, the eyes of someone with nothing left to lose. He was only wrong about one thing. I had only one thing of value left with me, and I was just 2 steps away from giving that away before Juzo Biwa found me. Shiroyuki's words and life story were very close to his own, other than the death of her parents. Naruto's parents were killed by the Kikbi on the night of his birth. That much Yugao had told him about their deaths and discovering his bloodlines. He did not even know his affinities until after his first failure at the academy. He knew why he had failed, he could not make illusions, as few Uzumaki could, his chakra coils were too large to easily control, which is what the basic Bunshin was, an illusion. He had heard about water clones and wondered if he could make a clone using his own elemental affinities. Long story short, that line of thinking did not work. All of his affinities are equal in strength, almost unnaturally balanced. When he used one over any other to make a clone, it did not work for one reason or another, then he would try using 2 together, which was when he discovered his bloodline limits. Which worked a little better than before, but the results were still less than perfect. The results did not meet the requirements to be a true clone. That morning he discovered his Kitoten. He had truly begun to despair about ever becoming a ninja of Konoha and have to leave the only family he had left if he were ever going to support himself. There were few in Konoha that would hire him for anything more than a pittance, and there would be no feasible way he could earn a living and remain in the village with his aunt if he failed the ninja exam a 3rd time. If that had happened, he would be forced to leave Konoha to find work because there was no way he was going back to living on the streets. The way he did when he was 4, for 2 years after the orphanage he lived in evicted him in a place that hated him. He was not afraid of hard work, nor did he believe his aunt would have just kicked him out. He was sure enough of the mutual love and care they felt for each other to not worry about that, but he refused to allow himself to mooch off of her or the clan coffers for the rest of his life. He would not feel right with himself if he could not contribute significantly to the place he lived, even if it were just to be able to pair and Naruto turned to look at her. A tool was once a term used among ninja clans to describe a retainer or a vassal of sorts, he informed her. They weren't servants or anything like that, they were a part of the clan and were loyal only to a specific person or family within said clan. Their body, mind, and hearts were still their own, as were the consequences of sharing either of those too freely or unwisely. The only thing the two owed to his or her master was their life, their labor, and their loyalty. Naruto was silent as he watched her understand what a tool's purpose was, then he asked, "You are a tool. Once you were a tool to fix the loneliness and pass on the legacy of Juzo Biwa. You may continue to do that, regardless of your acceptance of my offer. His ninja deserves to continue. He was a great man, a powerful ninja. In fact, I will even allow you to carry Kubikirabacho in both his name and mine, depending upon your answer to my offer." Naruto saw her eyes alight with anticipation of what she believed he was going to ask her. He leaned down, grasping her head from the back and cupping her chin to keep her eyes locked on his, and made his offer. "Will you, Shiroyuki of the Yuki clan, become my tool and a tool of the Uzumaki of Konoha?" She began to nod her acceptance as much as she could with him grasping her like this as Naruto outlined the specifics of her purpose for him. Will you add the name Uzumaki to your name to introduce yourself as Shiroyuki Uzumaki of the Yuki clan, tool of Uzumaki Naruto of the Uzumaki clan of Konohagakure, or any plausible derivation of the previous stated introduction? Naruto began to glow a crimson red as he tapped into a special chakra called mana that all Uzumaki possessed and was specific for only one purpose, swearing unbreakable oaths. Oaths which were sanctified by one of the three pillars of existence. Kami, Yami, or Shinigami, light and life, darkness and corruption, or death and decay. There is a reason why Uzumaki never go back on their word, or break a promise, or why their Fuinjutsu were among the strongest in the elemental nations. They had the power of godly beings, coursing through their chakra. You may speak your mind to whomever you choose, share your body with whomever you choose, and you may fall in love with whomever you choose, with all consequences and issues belonging to you as well. I, Uzumaki Naruto no Konoha, however, require from you your life to give away as I see fit, though I vow to never allow you to give your life away cheaply. I will always have a purpose when I risk your life. Your labor, excluding 20% of whatever money you earn from any endeavor, is yours. I will provide a roof over your head, you will provide your own food and quality of life, and the 20% you pay will go directly into the Uzumaki vault as community tax. You may retain your license as a Kunoichi, but you will not accept any mission from any person or entity that is not from the Uzumaki clan of Konoha, of which, at the moment there are only two members, Naruto and Yugao. Tsunade Senju is also an Uzumaki by blood and the Hokage, but you may only accept missions or assignments from Tsunade Senju, not the Hokage, who always speaks for the village. Your labor and loyalty belong to the Uzumaki clan of Konoha, not to the village of Konoha. You will carry Kubikirabacho in my name, as well as, in the name of Juzo Biwa-san, anywhere you are sent. His eyes hardened as he added, the executioner's blade belongs to me, I will use it as I see fit, you will protect my ownership of it, even with your own life, which is the most frivolous thing I will give your life away for, so you should try to become as strong as you can, so nobody will be able to take it from you. Naruto saw the happy acceptance of his terms as his tool, but easy oaths make for complacent tools, so he needed to add a few things that will make sure Shiroyuki does not make her oath lightly. I have said that your mind, body, and heart will belong to you, that is true, I will not take away your free will, your oath to me, and the clauses I have laid out before you, will not be superseded. Your conduct, since you are mine, will reflect upon me, and I will reward or punish you, as you deserve. You may share your body with whomever you choose, in whatever capacity you wish, but any children that result from such a union regardless of the father's station or status, unless you marry him, will belong to the clan, though they will be given the choice of whether to become another tool for the clan or not. Either way, they will be raised as Uzumaki, with all of the rights and responsibilities therein, Naruto concluded, and she had stopped nodding as she listened to Naruto place a hook in his toolmaker oath, and something told her it was only the first one. Time to give her a way to escape this bond, he thought. You may fall in love with whomever captures your heart, however, it is very difficult to give your loyalty to one person and your love to another, in my opinion they go hand in hand. To me, falling in love is to make yourself vulnerable to another person, and thus, you need loyalty and trust to truly love someone, so if you ever fall in love with a person, and that person wishes to marry you, he, or she, whomever you choose, must ask for my blessing before they ask you. Only upon my blessing will you be allowed to consent to marriage, at which point, you are free from this oath, and may then dedicate yourself to your new precious person. Otherwise, this oath is binding upon you until the moment you die. Do you consent to this vow, before the pillars of existence? Before the three, I, Shiroyuki Uzumaki of the Yuki clan, tool of Uzumaki Naruto of the Uzumaki clan of Konohagakure, hereby forthwith and immediately consent to the previously stated oath, Shiroyuki affirmed. As soon as she affirmed her oath, Naruto, still holding her by the head, pressed his lips to hers, and the crimson mana flared like a red sun, and they could feel the three pillars consecrating their oath of the tool. Now, if either of them breaks their oath they will be sent straight into Yami's maw, hell, upon their death, regardless of how they lived their lives. Shiroyuki came out of her memories as a needle-studded corpse of one of the thugs sent to kidnap Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, fell over dead. She looked over at the other one, who had thought to take more from the young woman than her freedom. He had been bisected from groin to head with her master's blade. Shiroyuki swiped her hand laterally and her ice dome lost cohesion. Thank you, Naruto-sama, my most precious one, she said in true gratitude, for becoming my purpose. Back at the bridge, a gang of 50 mercenaries had appeared behind the Kiri and Konoha ninja. They were being led by a very short man. He used a cane to direct his men, like a conductor directing musicians, only his audience was less than amused. The genin immediately discerned the caliber of these men, and even they could tell that Gato was scraping the bottom of his barrel. Naruto, Sakura and Hinata looked at their senior colleagues, as if asking permission for something. Kurenai, Yugao, Jack, Mei, Zabuza, CHMJKRM, and Ao shared a look and a smirk, then looking at their Kohai nodded. Kurenai only said one thing, no chakra, unless necessary. All three genin gave vicious grins. Naruto, standing between his Kunoichi peers, drew his blade. Sakura pulled her two hanbo and morphed them into kama, and Hinata was cracking her knuckle gloves, and together they stepped forward. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.